Yep. Did you know that every new Toyota comes with Toyota Care at no additional cost? The great deals just keep getting better. Toyota, let's go places.
This video was made possible thanks to our friends over at Hollywood Health and Society who sponsored this video. Hey there, welcome to Life Nugget. In the world of science, it's not just about coming up with the latest and greatest equation or piece of tech, but also making sure that it can indeed help the world. That's where the science of medicine comes in. Before a doctor can prescribe a drug or treatment, it has to be tested in clinical trials to verify it's both effective and safe for people to use. So, just what is a clinical trial, you might ask? Well, using volunteers or participants, a clinical trial is a research study that's meant to evaluate a new or existing medical, surgical, or behavioral intervention. They let us see if a specific treatment, maybe a medical device like a pacemaker or a vaccine to prevent chickenpox, is safe, effective, and if it has any bad side effects, which are all very important. And something you might not know, because we're all different, drugs don't affect everyone the same way. Your sex, age, and ethnicity can play a significant role in certain health risks. For instance, according to the National Cancer Institute, the incidence and mortality rates of kidney cancer are twice as high in men as they are in women. For most major cancers, Black Americans have the highest mortality rate, while white women have the highest incidence rates for breast cancer, and Asian Americans are the most likely to get liver and stomach cancers. So if you just conduct a clinical trial on one part of the population, you could be missing a lot. That's why it's very important for clinical trials and research to have diverse participants. I mean, you should be testing whatever you're coming up with on the people it's meant to help. The FDA themselves even say that medical products are safer and more effective for all of us when we have diversity in our clinical research. That said, there are some legitimate concerns around clinical trials, mostly with people of color, and much of it traces back to the 4-year Tuskegee study on the treatment of syphilis in Black Americans. Back in 1932, this study involved 600 black men, 399 with syphilis and 201 without, who in exchange for being part of the study were told that they would get adequate treatment. But that didn't happen. Even when penicillin became the go-to treatment in 1947, researchers didn't offer it to the participants or give them a chance to quit the study, which lasted for another 25 years. Many men died, and some of their loved ones contracted the disease. Saying it went really bad is an understatement. To prevent another study like Tuskegee, the government passed the National Research Act in 1974, which added many rules and regulations to protect participants and ensure every study meets a host of ethical standards before it's approved. If you volunteer for a clinical trial today, rest assured there's a whole network of institutional review boards, or IRBs, that guarantee your safety and protection in the research. Despite this, the FDA reported in 2011 that African Americans represent 12% of the U.S. population, but still only 5% of clinical trial participants. Hispanic and Latino Americans make up 16% of the U.S. population, but only about 1% participate in clinical trials. It's all pretty clear. We need to accurately represent our populations. The Center for Information and Study on Clinical Research Participation makes strides towards this. It's a nonprofit organization that educates the public about the clinical research process, and also makes ongoing trials easier to locate so more people can volunteer. Seems like a pretty smart mission. Because if everyone participates in research studies and clinical trials, our medicines and treatments will be a lot safer and more effective. And that's not just a dream. It's science. So would you ever sign up for a clinical trial? Have you participated in one in the past? Let me know in the comments section below, or tell me, what should we talk about next? Down in the description, we have a very quick survey about this clinical trials video. It would really help us if you let us know your thoughts. Check it out before you go. As always, my name is Flacco. This has been Life Noggin. Don't forget to keep on thinking.
Great news, folks. Ram Truck Month is back at Lithia's Cops and Beat God Grand Fiat, Bryan College Station. Every new truck in stock is priced to move immediately. And remember, if we can't get you into a similar make and model and keep your payment the same or less than you're paying right now, then we'll give you $100. Plus, use your tax refund as a down payment and we'll match it up to $2,000. It's all happening right now during Ram Truck Month at Lithia Cops and Beat God Grand Fiat, Bryan College Station, the Ram Truck headquarters.
Lowry Torney, the soldier of 3 armies. It was October 18, 1965. The outdated South Vietnam Air Force H-34 helicopter hugged tightly to the mountainous terrain of the Phuoc Son district of Vietnam. As the French and Americans had found, this reliable but old workhorse was not well suited for frontline combat duty due to its slow speed and large silhouette. But maybe most significantly of all, its magnesium skin was prone to very intense and deadly fires if hit.
I think you're right, though, in the generational fix to it. I think that's true of a lot of the stuff that, like, one of the things I get asked all the time, school shootings, right? It's like the topic of the day.
Yeah.
I don't have a solution for it, but I know it's not going to be overnight. It'll be generational in nature, just like it crept in generational in nature. I think a lot of these problems, people look for a light switch solution, where the solution in and of itself is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't see any solution to that either. And I think there's a lot of positions that people feel that they're supposed to take. And if you're on the left, the big position that you're supposed to take is gun control. Get rid of the guns. The guns are the problem. Look at all these people shooting people with guns.
Yep.
Guns, guns, guns. And all the mass shootings, what do they have in common? Guns. They all have guns in common. They want to take away guns. And then there's the people on the right, and like, I've never done anything wrong with my gun. You're not taking my fucking gun. And then there's this fucking unstoppable battle between these two sides. And that there's a lot of factors. Like, what happens to a human that leads them to get to this state of mind where they're able to go into a school and shoot it up? Like, what is that? What could possibly be going on? How do we stop that from ever taking place? These people have to be in some sort of insane pain. There has to be something unbelievably wrong with their life that they're capable of doing this. How do we stop that? How do we look at that as like, if this is our global community, if this is our national community, how do we stop this from happening in our national community? I don't know what the answer to that is.
I think there's an answer to stopping school shootings, and not to oversimplify anything. I would say there's a couple key issues. One of them is location, the other one is motivation. You can solve the location issue. Like, if we as a country were legitimately interested in stopping school shootings, how many have ever occurred at a school where the president's children go? Zero. Why? Because it's defended, right? They actually take a proactive approach to it. They're going to have layers of security, defense in depth. They're probably going to have somebody looking out the front door, or a system looking out the front door, controlled entry points, entry and exit points. You can have a metal detector. You can have security staff on site.
Right.
So you can control the location aspect. And I go to every time I'm at my kid's school, or unfortunately, or fortunately, every building I've ever been in, I'm viewing it from a pseudo-tactical perspective at least. So I'll go walk around my kid's school, and there's issues that I see from a perspective of somebody who would want to exploit that from an aggressor's perspective. And they could all be solved. But that doesn't solve the second aspect of that, the motivation. Because I have absolutely no answer as to why a 17-year-old kid would think that a solution of any kind would be to kill their classmates. I don't understand that at all. And although it's funny, like, at every shooting, surprisingly enough, there's two things: a gun and a shooter. And vast majority of the time, I hear people talking about the gun.
Yeah.
I think we got to balance that conversation and talk about the motivation.
Yeah, 100%. And also psych medications. You know, you got to talk about that. The rise in psych medications has got to be correlated with the rise of school shootings. I mean, the amount of people that are on psych medication, and I understand that correlation does not equal causation. It's not necessarily that the medication is forcing them to do this. But I don't know what study has been done on what is the effect, and is there some sort of a connection, other than the fact that they're all on medication? Is there some sort of a connection between taking certain types of psych medication with certain biological makeup that allows you to have this diffusion of reality, like there's just some weird thing happens to them where they're capable of horrific things and horrific actions? Like, how much of that is monkeying with human neurochemistry? I don't know.
That's why I think the location portion, it's not that it's an easy solution, but it is solvable.
But isn't the problem funding? Like, there's no money to pay for teachers. They don't have money to, like, secure schools.
It depends on how serious we want to take it. Yeah, if we really wanted to stop it, what I'm saying is there are ways that can stop it. I'm not saying those ways are easy. I'm not saying that those ways are cheap, but there are concrete things. Just looking at a structure from being vulnerable to an assault, there are things that could be done. But that doesn't solve the school shooting problem.
Right.
It changes the address. Because the individual that would want to go do that at a school, if you make a target hard, that doesn't remove the motivation. That's what I'm saying. There's location, motivation, and obviously a lot of other factors. The location one, if you solve that, you still got to talk about the shooter.
Right.
And I mean, that's where I butt my head up again. I would actually like to see this country have a conversation instead of entrenched positions, either the left or the right. All guns should be bans. Come get them with my cold dead hands.
Right.
Which I don't. Again, I find myself in the middle of that. I don't agree with either of those positions because it's more nuanced than just the gun and the shooters, the combination of all those things. But I don't even feel like we're having a conversation in this country. I feel like a lot of people are talking. I don't think anybody is listening. And I go to the schools in the neighborhood where my kids go to school. I don't see a single change that they have made.
I think you're 100% correct in that there doesn't seem to be there's no real plans to stop this stuff, and I don't think anybody has a real answer. And it's one of the reasons why it's so confusing to people, because you could dwell on it and roll it over in your head all day long, and there's nothing that stands out as obvious. Like, hey, there's a fire, go pour water on it. That's obvious. There's no...
We make technology that moves people. This is the 2019 Nissan Rogue, featuring tech like ProPilot Assist. It helps keep you centered in your lane and in control. Now the most exciting tech you own is in your driveway.
If you believe the dead can return to haunt the living, you're not alone. According to one poll, 45% of Americans believe in ghosts, and 28% claim to actually have seen a ghost. They show up in our movies, books, and Bone Thugs and Harmony music videos. As far back as we can trace human life, there's evidence that almost every culture has expressed curiosity about what comes after. Many people believe in them, but is there actually any proof that ghosts exist? I went to Buffalo, New York to talk to Joe Nickel, a paranormal investigator who's been trying to answer that question for almost 50 years.
I'm the world's only full-time, salaried, professional, science-based paranormal investigator. I'm looking to explain things, not debunk it, not promote it. Explain it.
Nickel is a true Renaissance man, drawing from a wide variety of disciplines in his cases.
At one time or another, I use linguistic analysis, I use blood pattern analysis, psychological insights. Nearly anything could be used if it would illuminate a particular case.
So in the hundreds of cases over his half-century of investigation, has he ever found anything that would make him believe in ghosts?
Not only have I never found a single case that I thought was proof of a ghost, neither has science. Not a single ghost or haunting has been authenticated by science.
Part of what makes it difficult to investigate is all the different ways people have defined ghosts. Things flying off of a shelf? Ghost. Orbs in photos? Ghost. Mysterious footsteps in the attic? Ghost. Patrick Swayze seductively helping you throw a vase? Definitely ghost. All of the would-be evidence that ghosts exist consists of ambiguous photographs, videos.
The next day, his HDTV literally begins rocking violently from side to side all by itself,
and first-hand accounts.
Even if it's during the day, there's this eerie feeling that you get that there's someone there.
Which, while fun and spooky, are not exactly scientific proof. Ghost hunters often use gadgets such as EMF meters, a tool that measures electromagnetic fields, which ghosts can supposedly manipulate. But nobody's been able to explain exactly what the link is, and most scientists are pretty skeptical of this stuff. So there might not be any empirical scientific evidence that shows that ghosts exist, but that doesn't actually mean that you're crazy if you think you see them. There are plenty of logical explanations for paranormal experiences. One is infrasound, a sound that falls below the audible 26 feet. Infrasound can be produced by many things, including severe weather, humpback whales, or certain machinery like engines or fans. Researchers have hypothesized that exposure to infrasound can produce feelings of depression, chills, and the sense that somebody's presence is near
Frequency of 18 hertz, it resonates with the structure of the human eyeball. And if you have a sound that resonates with something material, it'll make the material vibrate at that frequency. And when that happens to you, your eye begins to see things that are in fact not there.
Swiss scientists have also been able to simulate a ghost in a lab. They made a robot that mimics the movement of the subject's hands with a mechanical arm that touches your back, but with a slight delay. When you delay the movement, it creates an unmistakable sensation for subjects that there's a ghostly presence in the room.
This time I really felt like I was playing with somebody, something, so it wasn't myself that was poking me in the back, but it was as if I was playing with an animal, a monkey that was poking me in the back or something like that.
While most ghost sightings can be written off as a robot poking your back, this experiment does highlight how manipulating certain parts of your brain can produce what researcher Olaf Blank calls misperceived self-representation, which can easily be misconstrued as a ghostly presence. Sometimes even just a person's state of consciousness can make them feel or see presences.
We can actually have people see ghosts. And those tend to be waking dreams that occur in the twilight between being fully asleep and fully awake.
These kind of waking dreams can also be called sleep paralysis, which about 8% of people experience at some point in their lifetime. You feel like you're awake, but you're unable to move your body. And it's often accompanied by terrifying visuals, like shadows, people, or even monsters, which, if you didn't know what was happening, would be easy to confuse for having seen a ghost. Another possible explanation for ghostly sightings is sleep. One study found that up to 60% of people that lose a spouse claim to see or hear their dead loved ones. In his book about hallucination, neurologist Oliver Sacks said that seeing the face of a deceased loved one can actually help you cope with your grief.
This sort of hallucination is not frightening. It's often very comforting. It seems to be part of the mourning process, and it really, some hole has been left in one's life, and this helps to heal over.
There is no question that most of the paranormal promotes something very positive. There are a few exceptions, but all have to do with our hopes and our fears. We're hopeful that ghosts exist because then we don't really die. Our loved ones are not gone from us. They are real and alive. I remember my grandmother died and how much I did not want that to be the case. But the ghost idea, the idea that we just get up out of our bodies and continue on, is powerful.
So, there you are with your depression and your dirty laundry that you just don't want to deal with.
I'm in Hull, a small seaside town near Boston in the northeast United States. I grew up visiting the British equivalent of towns like this, and sure, it's the middle of winter. It is so bitterly cold here that the ocean foam has frozen. There aren't any tourists, nearly everything's closed for the season, but this town still feels a little like home to me. There is one place on the seafront here that's open specially today, though, and it's the last Play for Cash fascination park in the world.
A lot of these did exist back in the day. I'm not exactly sure how many. All I do know is this is the longest standing, 100 years old last year. It was transported up here sometime over the past century from Coney Island, and it now sits here on Nantasket Beach. There are 64 machines here, so on a busy night here we'll have 64 players. The game begins with your bill on the glass. Will range anywhere from $0.25 to $1 and maybe $2 at a point in time. We have the entertainment and gaming license for anyone to come in and play as long as you're over 18 years old. It is The game of skill. Like everything in life, there's some luck that goes into it, but certainly there are some skilled players that I've witnessed over the past year.
So here are the rules. Roll the balls into the balls. Each time you sink a ball, the corresponding light on the board switches on. First to get a line of 5, horizontal, vertical or diagonal wins, or in some cases first to light up the whole board. And here, you win cash. There are other fascination piles, but this is the only one. Or you're not playing for tokens you can redeem, you're not playing against the house. You are playing against everyone else. And if you win, you're taking their money. With the house taking a cut, of course. But it is winter, it's the off-season, there are no tourists, so today I'm just playing against Chaz Young. Do you have 3 balls there?
I do, I'm ready to go. For yourself.
Alright, so it's a dollar.
Down on the glass, wasn't a dollar bill. I think I might be out. Let me double check.
That's fine, do you borrow a dollar?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Alright,
All right,
dollar on the glass. Dollar on the glass.
Alright, good luck, Tom.
Alright.
3, 2, 1, roll them.
So we're playing to cover here.
Playing to cover.
Okay.
It is winter right now, so the plan for the next few months is to reestablish the arcade, shake it up a little bit in there, meaning we're looking to make it easy for everyone to join, understand the rules, and get in here and be a part of the fun.
How do you aim?
Every so often, these games will peter out because of their age, and there's a local gentleman who comes in on a weekend, fixes it for us to get right back at it the next week. It is still running on century-old technology, just a few different components are changed in and out, of course. They are all tied together into one circuit and work amongst themselves.
Am I in the lead? I think I'm in the lead. Just.
Oh yeah, it's if I have 3 or 4 there. Gotta catch up. I think there's a place for it to expand and grow and be in a lot of different places throughout the world. But the reason it isn't everywhere is I think we are a part of the technological era, and with different ways that you can stay busy nowadays, cell phones and gaming consoles, televisions, there are other things that pull away from old-fashioned fun, if you will.
Just not. Yes, okay, 3. I've got 3, you've got 4.
We're going to continue to build off of the history that Fascination here on Antasca Beach has had for decades. I've heard numerous stories of the folks that used to run this over the past 5 or 6 decades, even more. And I wish these walls could talk because there would be a lot to talk about.
Oh, come on, I've got one. What I love about this is that these are century-old machines, built with the same relays that powered old telephone exchanges, and they're all interlocked together in one really complicated circuit. No microelectronics, no Wi-Fi, just a lot of things that go clunk and buzz.
So when someone lights up the board, everyone on the sidewalk, everybody in here can hear it and they know about it. They're usually cheering, all the lights on the board go off, and the gentleman calling the game or the woman calling the game will make the announcement that the winner is at, for example, table 13. This has got to be it.
I hit the one next to the one I need.
Game over, Tom. Oh! Winner. Good game, sir. I'll take that, and I'll take that.
Yeah. No, you're genuinely fun.
Isn't that the cool thing is you get these folks who have never played before.
Yeah.
They sit down, have just as much fun as we just had, and whether they play it once or twice before, next thing you know, they're here for 3 hours long. And as you can see, it seems easier than it actually is.
Yeah, because the first one's like, oh, I'm lighting everything up, and then you cannot.
You cannot. I mean, look, you tried probably 12 times.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you to Chaz and all the team here at the Paragon Boardwalk. You can pull down the description for more about them and about the Fascination background.
Great news, folks. Ram Truck Month is back. And this is Fast Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat Brian College Station. Every new truck we stock is priced to move immediately.
I dream of reaching my highest peak.
I dream of song.
I dream of getting my Taco Bell delivered to me.
What's popping up? Your favorite rapper is most likely broke. Well, maybe not exactly broke, but he's definitely nowhere near as rich as you or he would like you to think they are. I know this may sound shocking considering how much flexing rappers do, but it's important we understand the finances behind being a signed artist because maybe some of you might be interested in pursuing that. And before anybody tries to be clever and calls it pocket watching, I'm not talking about an individual. If explaining how business works is pocket watching to you, then it's not my fault you're retarded. But anyway, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. We're specifically talking about signed rappers here, not independent rappers. because I'm not entirely familiar with how that business model works, since most of them are signed to independent labels, which operate differently from major labels. Now, when you sign to a major label, most acts aren't coming from a position of power or any leverage. For example, when Russ signed, he had done a lot of numbers, had huge shows, etc. He didn't really need a label, so he could approach them with confidence. On the other hand, a lot of rappers sign early, so they don't have leverage. They're usually willing to take any deal that looks good to them. Now, the advance is what everybody mentions. So-and-so signed for $2 million or whatever. The advance is essentially a loan by the label that needs to be paid back. I'm sure most of you know this by now. But there are also options in the contract that the record label can exercise whenever they feel fit. For example, they'll give you a year to make an album, and if they like how it performed, they'll most likely keep you for another album, because you're making them money. They have all the power in this situation. If they don't like how your first album did, they can either drop you, tell you to go back in the studio and make another album, and if you don't like being on the label, too bad. You can't do a damn thing about it. Now, I know some of you are asking, alright, what's this got to do with money, though? Have some patience, we're getting there. Now, you also need to know that the label owns the music. So even if you get off the label, you can't re-release one of your albums. They own the music, the lyrics, they have the publishing, and while you're on the label, they own your image, your merchandising, unless there's a negotiated split, but most deals are 360. Creative control, meaning they get the last decision of what they want to be on the album, from artwork to music and publicity. If they tell you to do an interview or anything with the press, you have to do it. Which is why you see a lot of rappers look pissed off or depressed, like they don't want to be there at these radio stations. Because truth is, they don't. They're forced to. Now there's a concept called cross-collateralization when it comes to loans. And it operates in record contracts as well. Let's say an album flopped or didn't do as well as expected. It sells 100K equivalent and makes $1 million. And you as a rapper get a royalty of that. Let's say 20%, which is 200K. And I'm being generous with that estimate. Some of y'all probably saying, not bad. And some of y'all are probably already thinking, it's stuff. But wait, there's more. Say the album cost 500K to make in expenses. So guess what happens? You're in the negatives now, and you owe the label 300K. And most likely won't even see the check from that 200K you made from the first album. But the label made a good 500K plus off of it. So they're going to send you back into the studio to make another album, so you cover the costs you owe from the first album and the cost from the second one. And you don't get paid until both of those are covered. And this can go on for multiple albums. This is why having such a high advance is good, because you can at least eat while the label is running you dry. The labels are never really paying for anything either. Rappers might say the label is paying for music videos, studio time, producers, engineers, distribution, tour support, radio promotion, and sales and marketing costs. All of that is subtracted from your royalties, or what the label is supposed to pay you. Now when it comes to rappers spending their advance money, that is the best part. Beanie Siegel broke it down well in the interview a while back, and I might play some clips, but it's long, so I don't think so. I'll just try to paraphrase it. Let's say a rapper gets signed for $2 million. Now, you're getting taxed with the big boys, so you got state tax as well as the income tax and whatever else. He estimates it at $1 million, which I think might be too much, but whatever, we'll just go with that. Then your lawyers are going to want to take 10% to handle all your legal stuff. So you're down to $900,000. Then your management is taking 20%, which is $180,000, bringing you down to $720,000. Then rappers want to buy a crib. Beanie talks about $250K for a crib. They're paying way more than that right now, and they're not buying it in cash. So they buy an expensive crib, and they're paying interest on this home. And the same thing with whatever car they bought. They're not buying these cars in cash because if they were, don't you think they would flex it on an IG video? And if they're leasing it, then that's actually not a bad idea. But usually they buy some ridiculous car, and they got to pay interest on that as well. Then they're buying all this jewelry that's $100,000 or maybe even more. Advance is damn near gone. But they're still the accountants, and they still have to pay this all back to the label. The interest payments is what's really going to eat up the rapper's money. Because when you're making payments, you pay the interest first, and then it gets to whatever the amount you actually bought the house or car for. So if you're making minimum payments, which they most likely are, then it's going to take longer to pay off the car, which means more interest payments. And the same goes for the house, which is most likely a couple million since they're buying it in LA. So these rappers may be generating money, but they're barely getting paid, unless they're super successful and they're in debt. So their net worth is likely in the negatives, meaning if you have no debt and a minimum wage job, you're probably richer than your favorite rapper, especially if their album keeps flopping and they keep having to drop one after the other to recoup, which is the situation I think Young Thug is in right now. But don't quote me on that. Now, another issue is when the rappers buy all this stuff, they have all this hype, and say it costs them $1 million a year to live this lifestyle. They think they're going to be making money to live this lifestyle indefinitely. But when they eventually fall off, which usually happens, now they still owe all this money, and they don't even have the income to afford to keep the lifestyle they had already.
I have a 1,000-word essay.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're reacting to a video. What a great intro that was, by the way. Today we're reacting to a video that even my mom sent to me, so you know it's pretty important. What Indians think of PewDiePie versus TC? So far, the Indians have been quiet. Their voice have been silent. I assume by T-Series themselves. But now, thanks to the channel Asian Mom, we will find the answer. Like I said, my mom sent me this video, so you know it's going to be good. Let's just find out.
Hi, it's Chris from Asian Mom. Even with all the stereotypes all my roles are here to more interesting about
as they should. But they should. Wars are no longer planned to solve personnel fighting to 9-year-olds.
We're talking about PewDiePie for theory. The question is, do Indian people even know who PewDiePie is? How big is T-Series in India? Our Asian boss reporter Nisha is back to ask hard-hitting questions.
These are hard-hitting questions. Yes, finally. We will know. I'm actually nervous.
Have you heard of the brand T-Series? Yes,
I don't know if I like how they refer to it publicly. I bet most people find out about T-Series things to me anyway. If anything, T-Series should be thanking me.
The viewers who might not be aware of T-Series, can you briefly explain what it is?
Frank, you're trying.
Music company to distribute music albums and songs. T-Series is the biggest, database of all.
Trying to get YouTuber, but no. Database, that's right.
They're saying it's there, background music and a lot of movies as well. It is the demo of India, okay? It is a music label which makes original music.
Oh, is that what they do? They make original music. I thought, they just copyrighted other people. That's really great.
How often do you come across it?
T-Series is a huge, it is a huge brand actually. Most of the top songs in India are made by T-Series. I think it has the biggest market share in the music industry in this country.
That sounds awful. One company maybe all the music in India. Go on.
The biggest channel right now from India.
That's right, from India. We keep leading up to something. But no, it's the biggest channel from India. That's right. That's all you're going to get.
For the major movies.
Don't make them come to India, by the way.
Everything will be made by T-Series.
T-Series is that one music destination where
Okay, alright, yeah.
Go over to do song or anything.
through my entire career of shooting video, there have been things that I have longed for, gear, longed for with shots. You see some footage somewhere and you think, I would love to shoot the camera like that. I would love to film that at the highest frame rate possible, so it's super slow. I would love a camera with more dynamic range. I would love to get some aerial shots of this. I would love to get real close to the action camera, dive in the water so it feels like we're in the moment. I've had all those experiences. There's been times in filmmaking where I've had all those thoughts. There's never been a time, never there has been a time where I've thought to myself, I would love to capture this in 360. This never happened. Never, ever, ever happened until I used it, and now it's happening. What's up, everybody? Peter McKinney here, and welcome back to Monday morning. I know, it's Monday. We're going to get through this together. I haven't even had coffee yet, but today we're talking about a new little camera. Well, it's not really new. I've kind of missed the boat on this. Literally, like, every single friend of mine has already done videos on this thing.
What the hell is this? What is even going on?
So we're going to put it into the time-lapse mode.
It also does 3K at 100 frames per second. People are like, what are you doing? I said, hold up, wait a minute, let me show you.
It kind of looks like there's just a floating camera. This little thing, I didn't think I'd like it, kind of wanted to hate it, kind of love it. It's the Insta360 1X 360 cam, action cam. I've never talked about 360 on this channel before. I've never owned a camera. GoPro Fusion stuff has always been stitched and done for me. I've never had to deal with anything in this realm as far as 360 video goes. This is my very first introduction. Wow, I kind of wish I got here earlier because this thing is legit. Here's a little look at it, okay? Look at that. Sleek, nice and slim. For those of you that don't know what 360 video is, it's essentially a camera that captures everything around you and then it's stitched after the fact. So you basically have the option to choose which frame you want because it captured everything around you. So you don't have to worry about missing something, you heard something happen behind you, I wasn't filming. Gone are the days you were filming because it's 360 and you can just move the camera after the fact and choose that frame if you want. So it's next level stuff, and I didn't really fully appreciate how cool and how clever and how creative you could get with it until actually taking it out and using it. So before we get into that stuff, when you buy this camera, you get the camera itself, they give you a little neoprene case. I kind of wish it was like a hard case because you can still press the buttons through it, but that's the little case that it comes with. They also give you like the selfie stick, because this stick, the software, when you're using this, the software removes the stick in post. So it looks like a floating camera is following you around. Some of you may have seen some snowmobile footage of me lately, and a lot of people were asking, everybody that I sent this to, that looked super cool. Who was filming that? Was a drone following you? Nobody understands, like filmmakers get it, but like regular people, muggles, if you will, nobody understands how it works, because you just look at it and you're like, how is the camera following you, and then who turned it? And then how is it now looking like, were you flying a drone? No, it's super crazy. So their software, if you're using this selfie stick with it, this thing extends really, look at that. That's some Daredevil stuff right there. Really, really cool, and the software removes it completely. So if you were just holding it casually, the camera on the end, and you had your hand kind of just like this, and you're just walking around, it looks like you're kind of walking around normally anyway, and the camera's following you. You're just being nonchalant about it versus like carrying it like that. There's a lot of really cool possibilities with this stick. So if you're on their website and you buy this, it is, looking right now, it's $517 Canadian with a memory card and this camera, and then if you add the selfie stick bundle, it ends up being $537 Canadian. It's not like they're gouging you $90 for this accessory. Like, I'm a big fan of that. I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of when I'm trying to, get the whole combo and you're spending $200 extra that you weren't planning on it because you need all the other things. Kudos for them for making this stuff affordable. It makes the experience more fun. The battery life on this is about 60 minutes of non-stop recording, so once you charge it up, you get about an hour to use it. The battery is found in this little door here that just flips open with this latch, and it just pulls straight out. So it only comes with one battery, but it's pretty good. I've used this since I got it, and I haven't had to charge it yet. I haven't found myself recording like at-length videos with this. It's mostly just like, hey, that would be a cool shot to be 360. So you fire it up, you get the shot, and you kind of turn it off. I've gotten to be pretty conservative with batteries of devices like this, just because I've always had the worst experience with my GoPro batteries. So I'm using that in the cold. In some of this footage that you're seeing, I took both the GoPro out and the Insta360 One X. The GoPro battery was at 80%. I got this shot right here with the GoPro. So you can see it's a lot wider. It looks a lot more like maybe like a vlog camera. After that shot, the battery died. Straight up from 80%, those 3 shots, the battery died. So I was like, well, that sucks. I didn't bring an extra battery because I didn't expect it to die. This thing didn't die at all. I charged it out of the box for like 25 minutes and it lasted like the whole day. So that was great. I was able to pull this thing with my right hand and just throw it with my right hand, and it captured everything. So check out this shot here. This is me riding a snowmobile, and then because everything was captured in 360 with this camera, right before I go into the tunnel, I was able to move the camera to show me from the front and then move it back afterwards. So you're programming those camera moves in after the fact. So all I was doing in person is I was just riding. Just went under the tunnel, ducked, went back out. I didn't move at all. I moved this after the fact. And that's what makes it look so cool, because the software with this app that lets you do all those camera moves removes the pole, which makes it so deceptive and so useful for filming yourself, filming B-roll of yourself. Those certain instances, it is amazing. I think Maddie's actually just in BC, and he was walking behind a helicopter. He had it fully extended behind him, so he was getting shots in slow-mo of his feet walking up to a helicopter. You don't need anyone else there to help you. You don't need a buddy. You just grab this thing and get creative with the angle that you're using that. You're not going to get the same depth of field that you would get with like a 1DX. All of the settings and camera specs that this offers is going to make that shot look a lot better. But in a pinch, this is phenomenal. I would have no problems using this in vlogs, and in fact, I have, and I'm just going to continue to do so because it's small, it's amazing, and it takes up just such a small little footprint in my camera bag. So I'm hyped on that. What I find particularly cool with this 360 stuff is not necessarily programming in all those cool camera moves after the fact. But while they are amazing and super deceptive and they look really cool, I think finding ways to use it as an extra angle, that's impossible. When I was texting Casey about this, we were saying what's really cool about the technology is it allows you to get shots that you would just otherwise never be able to get. I liken it to him walking onto the airplane where it looks like a drone is following him into his airplane seat. If you just saw this clip 5 years ago, you'd be like, no one would understand what's going on. For the most part, people still don't understand what's going on. It's an impossible angle that no one would be able to get unless someone was filming him, holding up a camera, walking backwards, trying to get that same shot. But by yourself, being able to get that, and then choose what angle it is, finding something super creative and unique, and then just locking it off to that angle. Not really using it as a 360 cam. You don't have to get into the gimmicky stuff where you can see the whole planet and you're just like a little thing that's a sphere. Like, I'm not really into that. Once you get the app open, you can really program how much you show of your environment. You can really bring it out. It makes it a lot more wide and spherical, or you can drag it right in. It makes it 16:9 with almost no crop at all. So let's talk about the workflow for a minute with the Insta360 One X. It's the longest thing ever. Usually the workflow when it comes to stitching 360 video is where it gets really tedious, and that's what scares a lot of people away from using it. But they have an app that does it all for you, and there's different ways to capture the media. You can set tracking points and attach those tracking points to one individual, and then it'll just track that person and make nice camera moves for you. You can do it in real time. It does look insane. Like if you're recording right now, and that sled's coming up to the bridge, you gotta fully whip around. You gotta fully whip back to get that shot because you're actually turning the camera in real time. You're turning it in 3D space in real time, and it's capturing what your body's doing. You're looking around the frame by physically moving yourself and looking around. Now, it looks ridiculous, but it's actually my favorite way to record. And that's one of the things I never really liked about 360 video when it was posted online. It was like, use your arrow keys to look around the frame. I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking. What if I look left and something cool happens on the right because there's no direction? Like, I just want it to be clear for you. I want you to watch my videos and you see what I want you to see. I don't want you to see what I'm not sure what you're seeing, or what I don't want you to see, or what, like, you're looking at the sky when something awesome is happening on the ground. But I like that once it's exported and we put it in the frame, you're just seeing what I want you to see, but I'm controlling all aspects of that 360 video, which makes it really exciting. So resolution-wise, this will shoot up to 5.7K at 30 frames a second, 4K at 50 frames a second, and it'll do 3K at 100 frames per second. So those are some tasty options to get you some really cool looking stuff. Let's talk about stabilization. You can see me riding this sled. Like, I was riding on a bumpy, hard-packed snow and ice lake, and it's pretty smooth. Or this footage here of Holiday and myself riding scooters through San Francisco over bumpy roads. It's pretty good. The stabilization in this is pretty on par with the Hero 7. I still think the Hero 7 takes it home as far as their stabilization is just ridiculous in the new 7. But the battery life, the quality of this image, I kind of prefer to the GoPro, and it's pretty easy to use. Now, when it comes to the interface of this camera, that's where I think it lacks. All you have is this one screen right here. This is the record button, this is the power button, but you also have to use both those buttons to switch between modes. So I end up taking photos of myself by accident, or I shut it off by accident, or somehow I'm in interval mode and I don't really know how I got there. Now, if you're paired with your phone with the Wi-Fi app, you're able to just set all the settings super easy through your phone. So that's how I prefer to do it. But for those instances where you don't have access to your phone and you just want to bust this out, grab a couple clips. If it's not already set for me on the mode that I like, I have a hard time getting to the right mode. I'm sure it's just practice, but I like something that's super fast, super intuitive. I don't need practice to use the menus because they're just menus. So I would love to see a version that has like a bigger screen where you can actually like toggle through stuff with like a joystick or up and down arrows or touchscreen arrows, or just something to make it a little more like user friendly. It's not unusable, but it could be better. The other thing that I'm not the biggest fan of, aside from the interface here, is actually the layout and how the app works. I think the app's kind of confusing. It has everything you need to do everything you need to do. I just feel like it could be laid out better. The UI is a little bit all over the place. I had to have Maddie come over and Matt, his editor, show me multiple times what to do and how to cut and how to use different options. They have a little bit of a tutorial, but I literally had to go look up on YouTube a few times how to do certain things just because I was unsure. So the app is a little confusing. Again, with practice, and if you use this camera all the time, you'd be a whiz at it, no problem. But when you've got a lot of different devices and you're just trying to use different things to make little things happen in one bigger video, you're not spending a ton of time with just one device. You're spending a ton of time across many devices. One's really confusing, both in the app and the interface of the camera. It just slows me down a little bit, and it makes the whole experience like a little less fun. Those would be my takeaways for things I would hope are fixed or tweaked in future iterations of app updates and interface updates with the physical camera itself. They do offer waterproof cases for these. Maddie was snowboarding down an actual mountainside in Whistler with this, getting it covered in snow, and he said he had no problems. That's not to say go do that, because it's not advertised as waterproof, but it was able to keep up a little bit. But if you want to go full submersion and you want to do more marine activities with the Insta360 I would definitely recommend getting that waterproof case for it. So that will be one advantage the GoPro has over this, is that there's no more cases for a GoPro, it's just waterproof itself. Now, the reason I keep making these references from the GoPro to the Insta360 X is because that's where all the questions are going to come in. That's where I came in. I was saying to my friends, what does it do that a Hero 7 doesn't do for me? And a lot of what I was coming up with was the Hero 7 does this quite a bit, but the ability to get the most impossible angles and program your camera moves in after the fact and capture footage that you've never been able to capture before in your entire career with something this small and this easy, where the software is self-stitching out the very thing you're holding, you just can't beat that. It's pretty exciting stuff. Super cool camera. You can really get creative with it. And ultimately, if it comes down to me recommending this, 2 months ago, I wouldn't have. But that's like someone that says they don't like a certain type of food and they've never tried it, but then when they try it, you know, sometimes their mind has changed. And in this case, my mind has changed. I'm a huge fan of this camera, and I cannot wait to use it this summer and see future iterations of it, because I think this is this good already. It's only going to keep getting better. So it really depends on what you are using it for, your personal needs. Do I recommend it? Yes, I recommend it. Do I think you'll be happy if you buy it and get some super cool footage that you're insanely amped on? Absolutely, I think you will, no question. So with that being said, that's the Insta360 X. If you have any questions about it, or you want to talk 360, hit me in the comments comments below. I'd love to know what you think. Tell me, have you been using 360 video before? Is it something that you, as a filmmaker or someone who's interested in this world, have ever thought about adding to your repertoire, or have you already been using it for years and years and years? I'd love to know your thoughts and jump in with a few of you. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got some insight out of it. Hit that like button if you like this video. Smash it if that's something that you're into, 2019 style. Subscribe if you aren't already. And I will see you guys tomorrow for 2 Minute Tuesday. That's never 2 minutes. You know, it is what it is. Peace.
This is Aston Martin's Lagonda all-terrain concept, and it could be the future of SUVs. Aston Martin claims it's the world's first luxury electric vehicle concept, and is now promising fully autonomous, zero-emissions driving with an opulent touch.
This is an all-terrain concept, and it really shows you the future design language of Lagondas. So it really is about how you take a benefit for the customer from electrification. So remove the internal combustion engine, the exhaust system, the driveline, the fuel tank, and give all that space to the occupant and provide a different, spacious solution within the luxury world.
The new car, which is expected to enter production in 2022, blends together autonomy, electrification and luxury within a spacious SUV shell and an ultra-long wheelbase.
On a given footprint, 5.3 metres long, you have more internal volume than a traditional car at 6.3 metres long.
The two electric motors that power the vehicle are mounted on the floor, one on each axle. This frees up a significant amount of space in the cabin, with rotating front seats. But that's not all.
One of the other key features on the inside, which we can demonstrate and show in current production cars, is no longer the traditional use of leather and woods. We use cashmeres, alpaca materials, silks, crystals. We've talked about ceramics.
Security is also a key part of the new concept. It has a protective cell for passengers on the inside, as well as gesture and voice control systems.
And it actually has a key, which is effectively your life. So the key becomes a download of your day's work. It becomes a download of where you're going, your diary. And rather than having to tell the car, you put the key in a docking station and it naturally translates where you need to be, what time your next appointment is, whether you need to go to the gym, whatever you need to be doing, but your life is stored on that key.
If we put all the luxury features to one side, can such a vision translate into an efficient means of transportation for the future?
The Lagonda all-terrain concept really takes advantage of the fact that there is no internal combustion engine. And because it's an all-battery vehicle, then it needs to be lightweight in its structure, and it needs to be aerodynamically efficient, because obviously weight and not being aerodynamically efficient are the destroyers of battery life. So it's lower to the ground, it has more airflow through the front to cool the battery systems, but to give it a reduced frontal area. And then the structure, again, because it's our bonded aluminium structures, very lightweight, very stiff.
With electric batteries taking off in the world of motors, space will no longer be an issue in the designing of future cars. Designers will finally have the chance to play around with more space in vehicles, especially in SUVs.
I think in the future we'll see SUVs taking on many, many different forms, whether they're coupe-like, 7 seats, more boxy, have more dynamic language to them. We're seeing more variation. And electrification just gives you more freedom as a designer to create something truly unique.
Robocalls, tied for most annoying type of phone call with every other type of phone call. Robocalls are clearly infuriating. Every one of us has answered our phone at some point in the abyss.
Hi, this is Josh from the customer service department. Can you hear me okay?
It is urgent that you contact us concerning your eligibility for lowering your interest rate.
You have qualified for a free medical alert system.
There is a non-bailable arrest warrant issued under your name.
The reason of this call is to inform you that IRS is filing lawsuit against you.
Oh, it was the pause in that last one that made it a real cliffhanger. I mean, you basically knew where it was going, but there was a tantalising chance that they were calling people to inform them that the IRS was filing lawsuits against Nicolas Cage, which you assume is always true, but a call to confirm every now and then would be nice. The point is, everybody is annoyed by robocalls. Hatred of them might be the only thing that everyone in America agrees on now. And if you've been feeling like you've been getting more of them recently, you're actually right. Robocalls increased by 57% in 2018 to nearly 50 billion calls, and it's understandably pissing people off.
The plague of robocalls is getting worse. They're the #1 consumer complaint to the Federal Communications Commission, which receives more than 200,000 protests a year. Robocalls make up roughly 60% of all complaints to the FCC.
60% of all complaints to the FCC are about robocalls, so they're definitely aware of the problem. It's like the actual tea salon in Vancouver called Neverland. By this point, they definitely know they have a real issue. The only question is, what the fuck are they going to do about it? The nuisance of robocalls has gotten to the point where even local news reports about them get interrupted.
We can't even get through an interview without an unwanted phone call.
I'm getting a robocall right now as we're talking.
There you go.
As I was preparing this report, I got one.
Because you are qualified for lower rate.
It is just not often that a news report gets interrupted by the subject of that report. Is your teenager getting involved in a strange new sex trend? It's called watermeloning, and it involves, God damn it, can you not do this somewhere else? So tonight, let's look at why robocalls are on the rise and what can be done about them. And let's start with a basic definition. Robocalls are any call where you hear a recording or a robot voice, or when a machine automatically dials your number, even if there is a real person on the other end. And while a small percentage of robocalls may be useful, calls about things like school closings or prescription reminders, the vast majority of them vary from the irritating to the outright illegal. And you might be surprised to know how many major companies are involved in this. A list of top robocallers includes Capital One, Comcast, and Wells Fargo, all of whom use robocalls to chase debts. And sometimes they do that a lot, as this woman can testify.
Lee Bourgeois never suspected one late mortgage payment would trigger what she considers an avalanche of harassment.
It came and I just blew me away.
Lee's attorneys say they've logged more than 6,000 calls from Wells Fargo to their client over the last 4 years. Some days, such as in January, Lee says Wells Fargo rang her more than 20 times a day.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Because what is the point of calling someone 20 times a day to collect a debt? Oh, this is actually great timing, because while I couldn't pay you 45 minutes ago, a small propeller plane full of unlaundered drug money just crashed into my den. Thanks so much for the call, all you ravenous ghouls. But as you undoubtedly know, it is not just major companies who do this. Phone calls are now so cheap and the technology is so widely available that just about anyone has the ability to place a massive number of calls.
You created a program here in your lab.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to hit a button, and right about now, the calls should start hitting.
All at once. This is insane. They're all ringing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's both very impressive, and when you really think about it, not actually that impressive at all. It's basically the finale trick from the world's least amusing birthday magician. Ta-da! Wait, nothing? Well, guess what? The great laptop genie got paid in advance, so fuck all of you. And if you're thinking, hold on, what about the do not call list? Well, it still exists, and very occasionally a big company like Dish Network will get fined millions for violating it. The problem is, though, it only applies to one particular kind of call, sales calls. And the list doesn't physically block companies from calling you, it's just something they're supposed to check before doing so. And scammers generally ignore it, first because they're scammers, and second because it's now easy to conceal their identity with something called spoofing. And I'll let Senator Susan Collins show you how it works in the most awkward possible way.
My screen is reading Internal Revenue Service. Well, let's see. Hello, this is Susan Collins. May I ask who is calling?
Hello, Chairman Collins. This is Sam Dewey from your staff.
Are you calling from the IRS?
No, Senator, I'm actually over here.
Cool. You know, spoofing is actually the perfect technology for Susan Collins to be demonstrating, because think about it. It's all about temporarily pretending to be one thing and then disappointing everyone when you reveal who you actually are. But despite sounding like Urban Dictionary slang for when magicians shoot heroin, spoofing is undeniably effective. Robocallers can pretend to be calling from your area, increasing the chance that you will pick up. And individual scammers can even pretend to be someone that you know, as one reporter found out.
Cybersecurity expert Jim Stickley sets up his phone to call my mom, posing as me.
Hey, Mom, real quick, I need your social security number and fill out some beneficiary forms. Can you help me out real quick?
Hello?
I've got this beneficiary form. I just need to fill it out. What's your social security number real fast? Great. Thanks a lot, Mom. Love you. That's it. That's it. I've got a social security number.
Holy shit! Literally everything about that was upsetting. From the fact that Jeff Rossen had someone scam his own mother, to the fact that she fell for it, to his amazing reaction when he realises that his mother did something stupid, to his bold choice to broadcast his own mother's stupidity on national television, to the fact that this man just told another man's mother that he loves her, to the revelation that he thinks Jeff Rossen sounds like a middle-aged man squeezing his own balls, to the fact that Jeff Rossen could really use a new shirt. The point is, there's a lot happening in that clip, and none of it is good. Also, a quick side note on that. His mother's social security number wasn't bleeped to protect her identity. It had to be censored because her social security number is fuck shit fuck dash cock twat dash take G shit tits. It wasn't her choice. It wasn't her choice. Blame the Social Security Administration. And thanks to all these new tactics, the onslaught in scam phone calls is huge, and it's only getting worse.
Next year, some estimates predict half of all mobile calls will be scam calls.
Wow. And that is a real problem for consumers, because you have to use your phone. We can't go back to the days where everyone would just shout their message into a jar and then mail that jar across the country. That was a terrible system, as it was only marginally more accurate than having AT&T now. Oh, you like that business, Daddy? Johnny's acting up again. Johnny's acting up. Oh, I bet I'm going to get some spicy jars in the mail about that. Woo! So, the point is, what can we do about this? Well, on a personal level, you can tell individual companies you do business with not to call you. By law, they're actually not allowed to robocall your cell without consent. But that is where this gets tricky. Because those user agreements that you agree to, you know, the ones that no one has ever read, they often give companies consent to robocall you and can make revoking it incredibly difficult. For instance, if you're a customer of Credit One Bank and you want them to stop robocalling your cell, just take out your user agreement and turn to page 4, section 19C, where you'll find that you have to physically mail them written notice featuring your name, mailing address, and the last 4 digits of your account number to this P.O. box in Nevada. And it makes total sense why you would opt not to do that. I would rather receive 1,000 phone calls a day, every day, for the rest of my life, than go out and buy a stamp. I mean, how the fuck would I even do that? Do I have to go to a post office, or can I just go to a Walgreens? And if I can go to a Walgreens, is it all the Walgreenses, or just some? And if it's just some, how do I find out which ones? Call, literally call, a place of business with my telephone and ask them if they could sell me a stamp. Okay, then what? I have to physically walk to the Walgreens? Literally, physically walk, like with my legs? And wait in line and buy the stamp? What now? Put it in a mailbox? What the fuck am I going to find a mailbox? The only mailboxes I ever see are those weird boarded up green ones. What the fuck are those things, by the way? They're spooky. That's what they are. It looks like a memorial of a past mailbox that died in a war. So, now I have to find the one mailbox in New York City that hasn't sacrificed its life for this country, pry open its big hungry metal mouth and shove a stamped envelope down its dusty throat. None of that's going to happen. I'd rather die than engage in that nonsense, and deep down I think you fucking know that. So it is no wonder that some people choose to simply mess with robocallers, as one journalist did when he noticed the person on the other end sounded a bit suspicious.
Well, I'm calling about an online request you once made about health insurance coverage.
Okay.
I work with all major companies and compare...
Hey, are you a robot?
What? No, I am a real person. Maybe we have a bad connection. I'm sorry about that.
Will you tell me you're not a robot? Just say I'm not a robot, please.
I am a real person.
I mean, I believe you, but will you just say I'm not a robot? It'll make me feel better to hear you say it.
There is a live person here.
If you could say the words, I'm not a robot, it would really mean a lot to me.
I am a real person. Can you hear me okay?
Right, but will you say I'm not a robot?
That man is dead now. She killed him, she stole his skin, she walks among us, and she'll kill again. But as fun as that is, experts advise you not to engage with robocalls at all. Don't pick up, and don't talk if you do answer, because that lets them know that yours is a live number, and you'll just get robocalls more. But the much bigger point here is, it should not entirely be up to us to deal with this bullshit. The FCC has the authority to police robocalls, and a few years back, they actually put some guardrails in place with a set of rules designed to limit them. As the FCC's former chair explained at the time, they basically followed a simple principle.
The consumer needs to be the one who's in charge. The consumer needs to give consent that they want to be called, or if they are called and haven't given consent, to remove that consent by saying, don't call me anymore, or by calling their phone company and saying, I don't want to get these calls.
And that sounds completely reasonable. But unfortunately, those rules were then struck down after a trade group sued, at which point robocalls increased significantly. So we made real progress toward addressing a problem, but then we blew it. We basically got our one-year sobriety chip, then celebrated by drinking a gallon of Captain Morgan. Which is not to say that there aren't things that the FCC could do. Unfortunately, their current chair is this guy, Ajit Pai. You've probably seen him on this show before alongside his stupid mug. And by the way, cheers. Cheers to you. Now, Pai says a lot of the right things about this. He said that robocalls are the scourge of civilization, and he's had a little too much fun showing how dedicated he is to tackling this issue.
To borrow from former President Kennedy, let every robocaller know whether it wishes us well or ill. We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any solution, and oppose any bot to assure the survival and the peace of American consumers. It sounds like I may have just won a cruise. If you'll excuse me, I have to take this call. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Ladies and gentlemen, that man is a goober. And Ajit Pai clearly has aspirations for high political office, but I would argue that that's not going to work out for him, because Americans can, have, and will elect bastards, morons, blowhards, crooks, perverts, dipshits, conmen, scumbags, and shitweasels, but they will never, ever elect a goober. But while he talks a good game, Pai actually opposed those rules that we mentioned earlier and was extremely happy when they were overturned. And since becoming FCC chair, he seemed reluctant to force telecoms to act. For instance, he could require them to offer free call blocking services or implement something called call authentication, which could significantly curtail spoofing. But he hasn't done that. Instead, what he's done is urge them to do it. And while some say that they are working on it, the fact is, if he had required them to do it from the get-go, we might actually have those fixes by now, because telecom companies aren't really going to listen to you unless you force them to. And AT&T isn't going to listen to you at all unless you call them on T-Mobile. How would they hear you otherwise? Their call would drop out, that's right, business daddy. Oh, that's right. You've inherited a problem child. Let's dance. Let's dance, you and I. But the thing experts are really worried that Pai might do is bow to pressure from groups like telemarketers and banks and draft a new, narrower definition of what constitutes auto-dialing. It's technical, but that would basically limit what would count as a robocall. And if he does that, it can have huge consequences. So, for instance, if Wells Fargo called your cell phone 6,000 times, you might no longer be able to sue them under anti-robocall laws. And it is safe to assume that at that point, robocalls are going to increase even more. So, if only there was a way to get the FCC's attention on this issue. Of course, I mean, one way to do that would be if someone had, say, the office numbers of all 5 FCC commissioners, because then you could hypothetically set up a program to robocall those numbers every 90 minutes with a message, say, I don't know, like this.
Hi FCC, this is John from Customer Service. Congratulations, you've just won a chance to lower robocalls in America today. Sorry, but I am a live person. Robocalls are incredibly annoying, and the person who can stop them is you. Talk to you again in 90 minutes. Here's some bagpipe music.
That would be really annoying, right? To get that every 90 minutes. It would really drive the point home. And, you know, I guess at this point, it's probably obvious what is about to happen here. Yes, FCC, we meet again, old friends. Except this time, unlike our past encounters, I don't actually need to ask hordes of real people to bombard you with messages, because with the miracle of robocalling, I can now do it all by myself. You see, it turns out robocalling is so easy. It only took our tech guy literally 15 minutes to work out how to do it. So, when I press this button, will it trigger our robocalls to the FCC? No. That would be too simple. Instead, behold. Instead, when my finger presses this button, it will trigger this much larger finger that will press a much larger button, which will trigger our calls to the FCC. So, FCC, you know what you need to do. And by the way, if you want to tell us that you don't consent to be robocalled, that's absolutely no problem. Just write a certified letter to the address that we've buried somewhere within the first chapter of Moby Dick that's currently scrolling up the screen. You got that right. You got it. Find the address, write us a letter, and we'll stop the calls immediately. And if you're thinking that there should be a simple way to opt out, well, no shit. Okay? There's simply no point delaying this any longer. Here goes. Unleash hell! It's raining! I think it's for you! That's our show! Thank you so much for watching! See you next week! Good night! Pick up! Pick up!
Hello, I'm Gav. I'm Dan. We're the Slow-Mo guys. Gav, I was in the army for about 7 years. Yeah, you were, Dan. Which means that I've got a lot of experience in firing different types of guns. Yeah. And just before we did the Super Slow Show, we fired possibly the fattest kind there is. Big 50 cal rifle. We shot the mirror right in the face. We did. We did. And the rounds were about this big. Yeah, I got a headache from firing it too many times. Well, you clearly read the title. You know this video is the complete opposite. Bit of a giveaway. This is a tiny little pin-fire gun, which technically isn't a firearm because it's not rimfire, it's pin-fire. Ooh. So you have a key ring on it. Oh, you got it as a key ring! You can wear it as a necklace. Wow. So the 50 cal is 12.7 mil, I think. Okay. And that's 2 mil. Yeah. Which is a hefty difference. It's wee. There's like 20 rounds in here. It's a tiny little bottle. Look at this little bottle. Most bullets are bigger than this.
You know what? We're not doing a very good size comparison. We don't have a standard procedure American quarter. There you go.
Oh, nice one.
Georgie Wash.
That's crazy, isn't it? I've got sweaty hands, so this is going to be so hard to do. Oh, slipped in there. No safety. But I'm not going to cock it yet. I'm just going to put it there. That's ready to fire now. You hit that with anything else, it just blow it away. It's just annihilate it. You never see it.
What do you think you're aiming for? I reckon a middle A.
Middle A?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a bit nervous because I've never missed from this far before. So if I miss,
but when you think about it, when you scale it up, it's further.
It's like a 25-metre shot.
Yeah.
Ready? Oh! It's a hit! You got it! I got it! Oh! That was nice. Oh, that makes it dent as well.
You didn't get A, you got C.
Are you complaining about me missing? Look at this, right? Look at the sheen on my fingers, yeah? I have to pull this back and then I have to like fire this with my nail, my sweaty palms. It's like slipping all over the place. It's no wonder I can even fire the damn thing. It must mean it's quite powerful if I hit it at such a low centre of gravity and it's still knocked the target over. Whoa! Wow! Gosh! It flattened it. That flattened it, because that's a ball. Okay, so let's go frame by frame, see if we need to go faster. Oh. Looks like it fires a lot of gum. Yeah. In that tiny little round, it's like... Oh, there it is. You can see it's streaked at the front of all those sparks there. I saw it. It was in the middle of the smoke when it came out, and now it's over there again. Oh, wow. So it's still a streak at 12,500 foot. God. That's mental. That is really fast. I wonder what the foot per second of that thing is. Because that was a... you said it was a blur. You just have to crack the barrel like this, and then in there, in the end, is our spent round. So we've got to get our push rod here, shove it in, and it should just push out the old round. There we go. That's the push rod there. You see, it's got all like black carbon around it because it's been fired, and it doesn't have a bullet on it there. Whereas these ones, let's just open our little magazine up. Boop. These ones are clean, and they have little ball bullets in the end. You can see the difference there. I want one now. It's like a little necklace or like a key ring. That'd be so cool. Yeah. Someone walks up to you and goes, "Hey, mate, do you carry?" Yeah. I've got an open carry license actually. There we go. We've moved further back. There's a couple of feet here. I'm going to try and burst a strawberry soda red sort of fizzy drink can. I've gone all the way over here because I don't want to get sticky on the cameras. It's a bit harder to hit the target from here actually as well. Is it? Yeah. Oh! Ah! Oh, it scared me! Oh. No! Hey! Going directly in the face! Oh man! If I hadn't had these on, that would have got me in the eyeball. It came out the other side. Did it? I'm not getting shot by that thing. It went all the way through. That's the entrance there. You can right see through the hole in the E. No, that's what I was aiming for, obviously. Yeah. I looked over and it was just it was spewing out of both sides at once. Right, this is what I saw, okay? I was here, just like, oh, fire, come on. Like after aiming it fired, and I was surprised that it fired, and then, because I had my eyes open, all I saw was this I saw in slow motion, I swear, just strawberries come straight in my face. I don't even think it hit the table. It just went straight into my eyes. All my ears and everything, and I was just like, ugh! Absolutely nailed me. That's incredible. I was never expecting it to go through both sides. I just thought it was going to get through one side. And this is what I mean, right? It just went straight to me. It didn't even hit the table. It's not even hitting the table. It just went straight into my face. That's so funny. It's perfect. You've shrunk off the can. Yeah, I really have. What a way to open a can. I think it's the only gun that's actually comical. It's funny how small it is, and it even made a cheeky little exit there, just tore through. I've never seen such a small hole. Oh, God! So you would assume that this is the exit wound, but if you push it together, you can actually see that that's where it went in, and it's come out of here. Oh, took off the entire can, took off. When the pellet comes out the other side, it doesn't split immediately. There's actually a few frames where it's just a hole. That's because this is pressurized. So as soon as it gets weakened, it just goes, whoa! What are you about to do? Shoot a little Niger man in the face. This to him is gigantic. It's like an artillery cannon. It's like an artillery cannon or something. Okay, ready? Yeah. Oh, where'd he go? He just vanished. Where'd he go? Oh, here he is. I found him. Oh, that's different. Oh, his arm went. I took his arm off. I took his arm off. At this speed, when I rock it backwards and forwards, you can actually see the momentum travel through his body like he's a full-sized human. Look, you can see where it's hit there, and it's knocked his arm off. He's got an arm off. I'm sorry, pal. So this bloke has survived a Lego plane crash. Yeah. And now you blew his arm off. I feel sorry for him now. You made me feel guilty about it. There's no need for that. Oh! I think I got him. I think I knocked his block off. I shot his hat off.
You shot the hat off a Lego man.
Yeah. Oh. I think it hit the front of his hat. See that dent in his red hat? Yeah, that's an absolute headshot there.
It protected him.
His earphones are still on as well.
His muffs and his hat protected him. It actually saved his head.
So I found his hat. It's got a huge dent in it right in the forehead middle part. To scale, that's probably about a mile. His hat flew. This is an execution. Oh! Ow! It's a line. Ah! Hit my finger! Because this is so small, I want to get a shot on a macro lens. This is a Canon macro lens, and this is a PL mount, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of open heart surgery on the Phantom here. First I should take this lens off. If you tilt it down a little bit, it sort of lessens the chance that anything will fall onto the sensor. Canon mount. Let's stick a shim in there. I like how you're individually tightening the screws a little bit, because it's a circle, you can't get away with just tightening one at a time. Yeah, if you put one all the way in, then there's no way to swing it away. So now, this Phantom fits Canon lenses. Ah. Get a look at the end of that. Isn't that weird? Tiny. Nice job. I like it. Ah. Well, you're going to use a clamp just to make sure that because the macro is such a fine little focus, and I've got such fat fingers, anytime I fire it, it inevitably moves millimetres left and right.
Yeah.
But because we're macro, that means that that's a whole world out of focus.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to use a clamp here to make sure it just doesn't move, and I'll just boop, fire it. Right. Oh my word! Makes it look huge. Oh! Look at this. It looks so big and heavy. It's like, oh! It looks like a huge piece of machinery.
Yeah. Just the fact that the legs sink into the glass is throwing the whole thing out of it. So it's going to hold it.
I saw you bracing your thumb against this.
I was doing this. I was controlling the whole thing by extending my finger against the table. Like that.
Yeah. Clever.
So this will be a macro shot right of the barrel.
Sorry. Ooh! Oh. That's so quick. You don't see anything. You don't see anything.
Just for size comparison in that macro shot, I want to see what the form looks like next to the barrel.
Go for it. That's mental. Good visual comparison there. That was really cool. Nice up there. I like how the core sight is out of focus, but the side of the barrel isn't. That must be like a millimetre. Yeah, a quarter is fatter than the distance between the foresight and the edge of the barrel, which is like about a millimetre probably. So 1 mil out, and you've completely lost focus. Is it weird that I had as much fun firing this little thing as I did the 50 cal? Just in a different way.
I prefer this because
of course you do.
It doesn't rattle my head.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't have a headache after firing this now. Yeah, that's really good. Really fun.
I might, though, on a macro shot, take all the sound from the 50 cal and put it
yeah. Well, I don't know. Enjoyed the whole making that video. It's nice and fun. What do you use?
Starting the macro, that was a macro.
Surprisingly powerful though.
Yeah.
Have to be careful with these things, they're not to be messed around with really.
Well, I mean, we saw what it did to the can. It had
Exactly.
So you don't want that in your eye or your belly.
No, so just point it away every time you're wearing it. I treated this film as solid today.
Hopefully you enjoyed that video. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's this one. We've also got the other one behind the scenes. More about what you guys do. Some fun episode as well, you know? It's just more up. Strategy. More of that good. We'll see you in the next video.
My dream reached my highest peak.
I'll be doing my Taco Bell delivered to me for free.
Our Taco Bell delivery. Delivered free for a limited time by Grubhub.
Come to the California
California.
It's very important.
Like all of it, not just this.
No, but this is pretty good though.
And this video is brought to you by Music Line. Get 5 high-end music tracks free by clicking the link in the video description. Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you.
This is Josh. He's an editor on Star's standout show Counterpart with Academy Award winner J.K. Simmons.
This is us. It's not glamorous.
Nice. I can feel the history.
We're the first ones here this morning. We have Scott Little, assistant editor, is in here.
Josh also cut on House of Cards and Bloodline.
Maria Gonzalez, who was an assistant last season, she's now cutting.
I wanted to shadow him to see what it's like to edit some of the biggest shows in television.
Natasha's visual effects.
Cool.
She's on set in Berlin right now, supervising stuff. We have a big 4K TV, and they can send the feed in here, and so we can see them grade in real time.
Oh, wow.
Rob is another editor coming back from last season.
I wanted to see how Josh works with specific scenes, but I also wanted to put my focus around 5 questions.
This is the office of my assistant, Ambar, who's not in yet, and this is where I'm in.
The police are here. I don't have clear ID. Mission fire. Take this shot. No, stop!
There's a lot of stuff going on. Like, there's different locations of action, right? You have, like, up in the balcony, you have down below the stairs, you have police coming in. There are a lot of different little pieces to juggle that are all happening at the same time. It's an example of a sequence that got worked on a lot. You're like, oh, that's the scene that everyone's gonna be sick of hearing that coming out of my room, like, all season. Very late in the process, I presented an idea of playing the shot on Howard and not showing her get shot.
No, stop!
The emotional moment is like her death and Howard's reaction. It isn't about, like, the action of her getting, this isn't an action movie in that sense, right?
This is part spy thriller, part science fiction drama, where Simmons plays a low-level office worker at the United Nations agency in Berlin, only to discover that it's really a gateway to a parallel world.
So it's our world, and then you go through a portal, come out the other side, and there's another version of the world that looks very much like our own, and at one point they were the same, and over time they've been slowly diverging. And that goes for everybody. So Howard Silk meets his counterpart, his other, on the other side, who is very different than he is.
I want to know how you became so different.
This is when Howard faces off against himself, basically, in this room. It's like where you might visit a prisoner, and it's just the two of them having it out. It's a scene that I'm most proud of. And so the dailies for this are these very long takes. This is an almost 9-minute take, just of, single on J.K. Simmons. The only other thing I've got is the other J.K. Simmons on the other side. And the only action that is part of the scene is the fireworks, the drama, the exchange of dialogue between the two characters.
They're all on that side now. False pieces. So, we thought you should know. Yeah, maybe you thought it would be someone else sitting here. Maybe your ex-wife.
It was helpful to really just map that out and know what each section was moving toward, each turning point.
You're mapping that out on the actual script?
First, I'll map it out on the script. I'll take the script and I'll break it down into beats. I'll draw a red line in between each beat where I think each turning.
Are you a video professional looking to up your production value? Let me show you the HiSight Mini. It is the world's smallest cable cam that'll help you.
Point is just going into some of my first cuts of this. So I'd arrange it in these chunks.
Okay.
So the first chunk is he comes in, he sits down, they have their initial exchange, and then things change because he says,
they're all on that side on false pieces. So, we thought you should know.
Now, that we, within the context of this scene, has significance.
Yeah.
That's a turning point. They were talking about their spy business or whatever, their intel that they got, but now it's turned, and now they're talking about their wife. Now the conversation takes a new...
I thought it would be someone else sitting here.
Direction.
Your ex-wife, maybe? When you told me died of cancer?
And so I lay all the stuff out about the wife, and then it's going to turn again.
I'm looking.
So now it's been a handoff. Like Howard sort of drove that section, and now Prime, he stood up to leave, but he's not going to get out of the room because he's going to come back at him.
Not long ago, I sent you over there.
You know, and now he's got his...
in the woods.
Now he's driving it, and he's moving it forward. And Howard Silk is sitting there taking it. So again, that's another chunk. That's another idea within the scene. And so I just broke it down, just going throughout the whole thing, and then I began refining and building each individual section. So I don't have to keep the entire thing in my brain, and I don't have to feel overwhelmed by a 9-minute take. Then I can start enjoying myself. But until that happens, it's the worst. Because again, each one of these is 9 minutes.
How long did it take you to cut that scene? Like to do your first presentable cut?
2 days. Until it comes through this room, it is not recognizable as a movie or a TV show. It's just a jumble of footage to anybody else. This is where what my mom would recognize as a TV show materializes. And I get to be at the very center of that. And so that's very exciting.
We really shouldn't be here. Thanks for the intel. I'll look into it. Is there just any truth to you?
This scene was so great because there's no problems to fix.
Yeah.
You're just watching 9 minutes of J.K. Simmons do his thing really well.
Yeah, fun and interesting how his voice is different between the two.
Oh, I mean, he's like everything about what J.K. Simmons did. I mean, I remember when I interviewed for the job, there was some discussion about, well, how do we differentiate between the two? And editorially, what did I think of that?
You're throwing yourself at my family. They hate you.
And I got to say, like, I mean, I said at the time, like, I would guess you're not going to have to do that much because J.K. Simmons is going to do it for you. It's going to be clear by the way he moves and walks and talks who we're looking at.
How much denial do you have to be in to continue to idealize her the way you do? I know my wife. I'm sorry, I don't think I caught that.
And the director gave me everything that I needed, and it was well written. It was just like, okay, this is all good. How do we just get the best out of this?
Yeah.
You know?
How does he, by the way, do the playing himself? Like,
right.
Do they read the lines?
Yeah, so it's actually one of two ways. It's kind of interesting. This is shot just for the back of J.K. Simmons' head. He's playing opposite his double.
Mm-hmm. So that's his double.
Right? And so it's just giving him timing. It's giving him an eye line. It's giving him something to see. And
so is a double an actor or just a dude?
You know, I never met him. He does well. I mean, he it's not like he's just there.
Yeah.
He's giving J.K. Simmons something to react off of. Yeah, and then they'll flip around. They'll shoot the front of J.K. Simmons, and then we got the back of the double's head. And of course, they would have shot the back of J.K. on this side, and we just marry him up.
Can we listen to one of those interchanges, how that plays?
Sure. In the raw dailies?
Yeah.
3 names for you. Mr. Wolf, Helen Mueller.
So that's just a double going, right?
We've been helping you.
We, again. You have feelings for her, Howard?
So, it's kind of, there's another scene I can show you this.
It's amazing how, like, J.K. Simmons' voice is already, like, this powerful, like, without...
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, and so, I mean, I can show you how this gets filled. This was a cool shot.
Before we move on to the next scene, I want to take a brief moment to thank Music Line for their support. All music tracks...
Then they'll repeat it, you know, with JK now playing what the double was. This will be the exact same camera move as what I just played before. And they leave the double there so that, because they need him to cross, right? So they need a clean piece of him.
Okay.
And then on our end, we did a very rough comp that looked like this. My assistant did this.
I'll make up the couch for you.
That's a keyframed anime.
Yeah, she just wrote out. Do you want to see the before?
Yeah, yeah.
This offline media is all the effect shots that ultimately got done.
I'll make up the couch for you.
So you can see where it gets matted out. And you can see when they cross, obviously it gets futzy.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of evaluation and to see how it all goes together, you get the idea.
Yeah. And then how do they do the shot? They do it in After Effects in-house, or do they
No, it gets sent out. So this became a shot for our visual effects vendor. So I needed to sort of build these, however rough, as I went to make sure. And then I would hand the sequence off, much to my assistant's dismay. I would be like, okay, I have another version. You can clean up the comps and make it look nicer.
So you are the assistant editor?
Do you want another truck? Or a truck like no other? One that makes people say, they put what in that?
Showed you guys my finished office, did I? Well, let's change that. Also, don't judge me. Gotta buy a new vent cover. Check it out. Here's the new office. It's very me. It's very much me, and it feels good to be able to just get work done and you're not bothered by anyone else, surrounded by all the things that I love. There's a few things I still need to do, like I want to fill this entire wall with picture frames and cool photos and friends' photos and art and stuff like that. So the whole wall. And actually, oddly enough, from my past, I want to put a sewing machine here. More details on that later. I know, random. OCD.
I'm amazing.
Energizer, known mainly for their batteries, have just gone and done something crazy, and I've got 3 smartphones to show you back to back in this video, and I think each one will impress you in its own way. First up, and the lowest end phone here, is the Energizer Ultimate U620S Pop. Catchy naming, I know, but it's really well built. The phone is encased in Gorilla Glass 3, has a well-placed side-mounted fingerprint scanner, and in my opinion looks every bit as good as flagships that are coming out now. LG could learn a thing or two. Also, I refuse to believe this is coincidence. The smartphone has a pop-up dual camera which creates the silhouette of one of the company's iconic batteries. It's a cool touch. It is $299, and it's easy to forget that. The phone runs Android 9, and you get a Full HD Plus LCD display that fills the whole front of the phone, and mind you, minimizes the chin a lot better than far more expensive rivals. It's got a triple camera on the back, which is not going to be close to flagship performance, but still, at $299, 10 out of 10 for effort. It's even pretty powerful. I had a meeting with the guys behind this, and whilst one of them insisted this is upper mid-range, I'd say just mid-range covers it, which is fine for the price. It runs a MediaTek P70 chip with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage. Now, the next phone, and I really think the company needs to look into hiring someone to name their products, is the PowerMax P18K Pop. And, well, it's a complete monstrosity of a smartphone. In fact, even to call it a phone would be a bit of a stretch, seeing as this thing weighs more than some tablets at 472 grams. It's still just a solid and well built, but surprising because it's in a form factor that I've never seen before. You know, the funny thing is though that Energizer have built a device thicker than 3 flagship phones stacked on top of each other and still haven't added a headphone jack. It's ironic, but it does make sense because this phone is all about the battery and a headphone jack might cut into that, or mean the production of a custom cell to fit around it. At 18,000 milliamp hours, this is the largest battery I've ever seen on a phone, and when it releases around summertime, it'll be a world record breaker. And they've managed this by stacking 3 6,000 milliamp hour cells on top of each other. So, what are the numbers? Well, according to the chief product guy, a conservative estimate would be 40 hours of gaming, 90 hours of call time, and a pretty staggering 50 days of standby time. It comes with a fast charger too, but just because of how much of a unit this device is, it still takes 9 hours to charge. In terms of other specs, it's pretty much identical to the first phone I showed you, but this mammoth battery has essentially doubled the price of the phone, which I was quoted would be on sale for around $600. I'd be curious, would you consider paying double for a phone with a significantly better battery? So, what's the third phone? Well, it turns out that Samsung and Huawei are about to get some flexible competition in the form of, wait for it, the Power Max P8100S. It's actually quite a serious phone. Although they didn't have any pre-release models for me to try, it should combine a price that is, to quote, definitely not $2,000 and top-tier specifications. There'll be a MediaTek version, but also a 5G one powered by the Snapdragon 855 chip with a 10,000 mAh battery and a 48 megapixel dual camera setup on the back. While I was at the booth, I was also drawn to this lifetime warranty sticker that was all over the place. And turns out it's not quite what it seems, but they say that if you have any hardware or software issue in the first 3 years of using one of their phones, they'll immediately repair or replace it. So it's still pretty cool. If you enjoyed the video, a sub would be massively appreciated. And as always, my name is Aaron.
especially if your work put in the world put at top transmission lines and antennas in the world of broadcasting. This video shows what it's like to climb to the top of a 1,768-foot tower just to begin your workday. It all starts with an elevator ride to about 1,600 feet. After that, it's all about climbing. Of course, you have to bring all your tools with you. That's the red bag hanging below. It weighs about 30 pounds, and you pull it up behind you all the way to the top. It's a lot like a spacewalk, where you have to remember to bring everything you're going to need, because it's a long way down. Once you reach the top of the tower itself, it's time to go outside. This is the pole that the antenna is mounted on top of. It's just there for extra height. This is called free climbing, meaning that no safety lines are used. It's easier, faster, and most tower workers climb this way. It's good to take a break and look around while you rest. Free climbing is more dangerous, of course, but OSHA rules do allow for it. Attaching, climbing, attaching and removing safety lines every few feet slows progress and is tiring. Here you can see an electrical junction box for the tower lights. Inside the cage, you can now see the transmission line that feeds the transmitter power to the antenna. This section is the antenna tuner. It's shaped like this to allow for the expansion and contraction of the transmission line on its 1,700-foot run to the top. These spiky flowers on their long stems are used to attract electrical charges in the air. This helps to dissipate the charges before they build up to create a lightning strike. Now we've reached the base of the antenna. From here, it's just another 60 feet to the top. His climbing partner is now holding the tool bag to keep it from swinging and knocking him off balance. Time for another break. Seeing storm clouds, he checks on the lightning conditions. If a storm's blowing, There's no quick way down. The top is in sight, and time for another break before transitioning to the top. At this height, you can see 55 miles to the horizon. This is the tricky part, getting on top. That object with the black top is the lighting beacon. And that's how you climb to the top of a transmission tower.
What's up, guys? It is currently 6 a.m. in the morning here in India. And run a crane. That was absolutely amazing, the whole holy ceremony. So that was absolutely amazing. Oh yeah, it's cool, right? Yeah.
So we are up here, the Grand Barat, one of the amazing suites. That's good. Yes, Sam.
Okay, Tom's gonna be doing some insane droning. The clips you're about to see are this guy right here. It's gonna be crazy. Alright, what's up? Tara, what's going on?
We are shooting on a rooftop at Casserole. Where are we?
I don't know. We made it to the rooftop. This looks pretty awesome. Going to the top. Pretty cool. Freaking out, we're literally climbing this building like monkeys. This honestly feels surreal right now. Just looking over the landscape here, the sun just set. This is the type of stuff I live for, honestly. I find it amazing that someone just had the idea to build this insanely extravagant hotel in the middle of nowhere here in India. They just did it. And this place is insane. So it's currently 5 a.m. It's Tom and Jacob, me. We're in a taxi right now. We're heading out of the hotel and looking for a building that we saw yesterday. So it's really cool. We want to catch sunrise up top. Hopefully we can find it. So we're driving down the street, and it's so hazy. It was really hard to find this building. Jacob managed to find it in all the smog. Those are buildings right there. Each one has a crane on them. How high? We're thinking that's like at least 80 stories plus the cranes on top. Really, really high. We're going to do it for this one, right? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this is the biggest building in India. This thing is massive. Buildings in New York don't go this big. So we're 30 stories up. It's literally the hardest thing ever. If you guys have never climbed 30 stories before, let alone 80 stories before, well, we go do that. So it's like, it's really hard. Especially with a 50-pound bag on your back. Guys, the staircase literally is overhanging the building. That's dope. Straight drop right underneath. This ladder literally is on the very edge of this building. Let's find a drone for this right now. There's parrots up on top of this crane. That's crazy. Yeah, there's parrots. We made it. Congrats. This was 5 feet around, I'd be running across it, right? But because it's 100 feet up, it's a lot scarier. Look at this view. This is how we do it. So it looks like people are starting to come up now. We just saw an elevator going down. So that means people are coming. So hopefully we can get out before anyone sees us. This is a bunch of workers coming into the building now. Luckily we're heading down right when we're coming out. So one second. Shook our hands. We thought he was going to freak out. That was insane. It's so funny how when we were walking out, the workers and stuff, they thought we were supposed to be there, like we own the building or something. They're like shaking our hands. Look at that.
Switching streams real quick.